Welcome to the 5.3 lesson video on mixed review. And the mixed review is we are going to be simplifying polynomials. So we're going to be adding, subtracting, and multiplying. Before we begin, it's really great to point out that when we add or subtract polynomials, we're not going to change the exponent. So don't change the powers, okay? But when you're multiplying and they have the same base, so they both have x's, we get to add the powers. Okay, so let's look at question number 1. So these are the differences between adding and subtracting versus multiplying. So adding and subtracting, we're just combining those two like terms together. We have 4x squared and 10x squared, meaning we have a total of 14x squareds. Notice how I just added the 4 and the 10. However, when we're multiplying, the exponents will change. So we're still going to multiply 4 times 10, which is 40, but x squared times x squared is really, well, that's x times x times x times x, which is x to the 4th power, right? Because x squared is 2x's, x squared is 2x's. If you multiply all of them together, there's going to be 4 of them total, 4 being multiplied by one another. Okay, let's see the difference between adding and subtracting versus multiplying. So here we have some 2 creeping out in front of our polynomial that's in the parentheses, and same with the multiplying. I'm going to multiply first. So anytime we have a number that is touching the parentheses, that means that we get to distribute it in. So 2x squared plus, well, 2 times 3 is 6x. Notice how there's not a variable, so I'm not going to be changing the powers at all. And then 2 times a negative 7 is a negative 14. However, when we add and subtract, there is sometimes a hidden 1 up front. So we're going to distribute that negative 1 to all 3 of those terms. And then if 2 has any friends, we'll group together those like terms. So 2 minus 1x squared minus 3x, and a negative times a negative is a positive. And there we see we have a couple like terms, my constants. So this becomes negative x squared or negative 1x squared, potato, potato, same thing, minus 3x, and then a 2 and a 7 together become a positive 9. Okay, so as you're watching these problems, notice how similar they look, but how different we actually are going to simplify them. All right, here's with adding and subtracting. Notice how there's a plus sign creeping in the middle, but here there is not. Both methods are very different. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my parentheses and distribute any negatives. Fortunately for us, we don't have any. Then let's group together our like terms. So there's an x and there's an x. That becomes 2x, and a plus 4 and minus 9 is a negative 5. So here's my final answer. When we're multiplying two binomials, so here I've added a binomial, I added a binomial plus another binomial. Here we're multiplying a binomial times another binomial. And if you're thinking we should use the box method to help us, you, my friends, are correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the box, kind of like the Punnett square that we see in science class. X plus 4 all times x minus 9 just means that we're just going to do 4 multiplication problems. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 9 is negative 9x. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 9 is negative 36. And then we can see that we have a couple like terms here and there. So if we add those two guys together, a lot of times you'll see me circling and then writing it in this little corner, and we get negative 5x. So our final answer would be x squared, so this box right here, minus 5x, let's write it in standard form from highest power to lowest power, aka in this case it's a constant, so no power at all, so minus 36. All right, moving on to number 4. So this is very similar to question number 3, only we are dealing with a binomial times a trinomial. So the same rule applies. We're going to first get rid of our parentheses when we add or subtract. So that way we can easily combine our like terms without making serious sign issues. Since it was a positive, nothing changed. But now I want to group together my like terms. So I have a 1m here and a 5m there. And then I also have a couple constants that could be grouped together. So if I write it in standard form, highest power to lowest power, I get m squared. 5m plus 1m is 6m. Be careful of that sneaky 1 in front. And then a negative 6 and a negative 3 means I owe $3, I owe $6, I owe $9 total. When we multiply these, we are going to do similar to what we did in question number 3. Instead of having a box, a 2 by 2 box, we are going to have a 2 by 3 box because this is a binomial times a trinomial. It doesn't matter how you write it, like which polynomial you put on either side. I'm just making the choice to put my m minus 3 on this side and then my m squared. So literally I just copy what's in the blue and put that up top. And I did the same thing with this blue chunk here. This m minus 3 becomes this side. This m squared plus 5m minus 6 becomes the top. All right, here we go. 6 multiplication problems. Here we go. M cubed minus 3m squared plus 5m. Well, m times m is m squared. I should have talked about this here first. This is at m to the first power, so m squared times m to the first is m to the 1 plus 2, which is 3. Because it's really m squared, which is m times m, being multiplied by another m. Therefore, there's 3 of them being multiplied. I did the same thing here. M times m is m squared. Let's keep going. Minus 6m minus 15m, and be careful with your signs. A negative times a negative is a positive. And then would you look at this? We have a couple like terms that can be grouped together here and there. So when I write my final answer, I'll have m to the third power plus 2m squared. I just grouped together my highlighted. Notice how I'm adding now, so my powers will not change. That's why it stayed m squared. And then minus 15m and a negative 6m together become a negative 21m plus 18. Okay, so clearly the multiplication has way more math involved. All right, now let's kick it up a notch by combining everything all together. When we need to simplify big expressions like this, we need to follow order of operations. So PEMDAS or GEMS. I'm just going to write PEMDAS off to the side. Okay, which means I need to do what's inside the parentheses first. Well, I don't think I can do x minus 3. And I don't think I can do 2x minus 5. So there's really nothing I can do with parentheses here. Okay, the next checkbox is exponents or square roots, and check it out. I have an exponent or square root right here. When you see a binomial squared, you should have a little red flag flying in your brain that says, do the box method, because squaring something really means writing it twice. So this is x minus 3 all times x minus 3. Let's multiply it through. X times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. X times negative 3 is negative 3x, and a negative 3 times a negative 3 is a positive 9. Like term, group those dudes together, and we get a negative 6x. So what we just found is what is inside that box right there on the left is x squared minus 6x plus 9. So we're just going to replace that because we simplified it. We made it simpler. So we're going to take that, x squared minus 6x plus 9, and we're going to plop it in the parentheses. Minus 4 all times 2x minus 5. Okay, so all we did here was we wrote this thing here multiplied out. Okay, we followed. Oh, what just happened? I lost my spot. Let me go back. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we've taken care of the E. We've taken care of the E in PEMDAS. Next, we either are going to multiply or divide. And it looks like we have two awesome multiplication problems. So let's distribute. We're going to distribute, and then let's distribute this negative 4. So be careful of your signs. When we do that, we get 2x squared minus 12x plus 18 minus 8x plus 20. So we multiplied and there's no division. And then we're going to add or subtract, which is really just combining like terms. So do we have any like terms? We sure do. We have some x's that need to be grouped together. I'm going to give those a box. And then we have some constants that we are going to group together. Okay, so 2x squared has no friends, so sad. We'll bring him down for the ride, though. 12x and a negative 8x grouped together is negative 20x. If you want to use your calculator for these questions, you absolutely can. You would just type in negative 12 minus 8. Do not include x's, okay, because your calculator will get angry with you and they will say that there's an undefined variable and it doesn't like to do operations or can't do operations with variables in it. But it's okay to just use the coefficients. And then 18 plus 20, let's finish this off. My constants, we add those together, and that is plus 38. Okay, now if you're feeling super excited to check your work, what you can always do is type in the original expression exactly how you see it. So this guy right up here, and then this new expression in your calculator and graph that as well. So graph those two and make sure the two graphs lie on top of one another.